So before you try this, make sure you've tried it on your own first. If you need a little help, maybe watch the first step and then pause it again and see if you can continue to go on, and so forth throughout the rest of the steps. But here's what I did, and remember, there's not always one way to do stuff. Some of these examples will have multiple different ways of simplifying it, but here's what I did. First, I changed the secant of x to 1 over cosine of x, and I changed tangent of x to sine of x over cosine of x times the sine of x. Now, if it helps you with your fractions, take that sine of x, this last one here, and make it into a fraction. Do that by putting it over 1. Sometimes it helps to know where the sign is being multiplied to or what other things it needs to be combined with. Then I can combine the multiplication first. So I'm going to keep my 1 over cosine x the same. And then I can multiply the top here to get sine squared x. And then I can multiply the bottom. Cosine of x times 1 is just cosine of x. Now that I have common denominators, so they're both a cosine x, I can combine my two fractions together and get 1 minus sine squared x over cosine of x. And then if I look at the top, I have that sine squared and I have a 1 that I'm subtracting. So I'm going to look to see if I can get my Pythagorean identity to work. So if we take a look at that Pythagorean identity, remember the original is sine squared x plus cosine squared x equal to 1. And I want 1 minus sine squared. So in order to get that, since I have my 1 over here, all I have to do is subtract that sine squared over to the other side. And I can look at cosine squared x is the same thing as 1 minus sine squared x. And if I know 1 minus sine squared x is what I have here, I can replace it with cosine squared x. So I get cosine squared x divided by cosine of x. And then this cosine can cancel out with one of them on the top. And I'm left with just a cosine x. If you have questions, let me know. In example 2, I want to simplify cotangent of x divided by cosecant of x. So I'm going to go ahead and change cotangent of x to cosine of x over sine of x. And once I start dividing, if I have a fraction I need to divide by something else, don't divide within your fractions because it makes things harder to simplify. Use the actual division key and write it next to it. So the cosecant I can rewrite as 1 over sine of x. Then I can use my rules of dividing fractions. Dividing is the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal. So the first fraction stays the same, cosine x over sine of x. And then I'm going to change division to multiplication, and I'm going to take the reciprocal of this fraction, which is sine x over 1. And then my rules of simplifying fractions, I can simplify up and down, or I can simplify on diagonals. So I can simplify these two sine of x's. Sine x and sine x can cancel out. And I am left with just cosine x. If you have questions, again, let me know.